Retro Rebel is brought to you by TempleOfGeek.com, your one-stop shop for all things geek. You can find all of our episodes and fulfill your sci-fi, fantasy, and geek culture-related needs at TempleOfGeek.com. Welcome to the Retro Rebel Gamecast, where we discuss gaming and related topics. Retro Rebel is released Fridays, and you can find this episode and much more by heading to TempleOfGeek.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Retro Rebel Podcast. My name is Stacy, and with me, as always, is my fellow Rebel co-host, Amanda.
Hello.
Hello. Merry Christmas. Pre-Christmas. Early Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mid-December, so it's officially ho-ho-ho time.
That's right. And in spite of the time difference, we still same amount of days from Christmas. But we have a lot to cover. I think this will be a 2-part episode. I'd like to kind of recap what we've done this year, but start like we always do. Just what are we playing? So what have you been up to?
So I'm playing this game called Karen. It's by this group called Blast Theory, and it's an immersive mobile game that adapts to you, and its goal is to build a psychological profile of you. It's supported by the Wales Arts Council over here in the UK, and it is a very, very unusual game. It's free to play on mobile. You can download it and give it a go. Apparently, the experience takes about 10 days to complete. You are introduced to a sort of self-help therapist kind of lady who asks you a bunch of questions, and you become immersed in her life and learn about her past relationships and her roommate and all that sort of stuff. And it's very unusual. I can see how, and I won't spoil it, so I won't say how I've been playing it, although you can watch a few minutes of the first few sessions with Karen on our Instagram or YouTube at Retro Rebel Podcast or at Temple of Geek, because I did film, like screen record while playing it so that you can kind of see what it is. It is a live action, so it's actually like filmed, and all the outcomes that you choose are also filmed as well. So I imagine it's a pretty expansive project, and apparently, now I haven't completed the game, but apparently at the end you get a psychological report. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And there are a lot of elements that could be confronting or make you feel uncomfortable or like hit some touch points. So I recommend that you play it like alone as like a science experiment sort of, and try to answer as honestly as possible. I was surprised with like how big of a prude I am even in private, like when it comes to video games and strangers. So that was interesting. But yeah, please do try, download, play it. It is very interesting if that's the sort of thing that you're into.
How do you spell Karen? Just for research.
Just Karen. So Blast Theory is the company that makes it. Now, I'm not sure about the global restrictions, if it's available outside of the UK App Store. But yeah, I came across it on TikTok, and they were like, do you want to play a video game that builds a psychological profile of you? And I was like, yes. Which I imagine a lot of people would be like, no. But apparently it's confidential. The results are like anonymized or whatever. So it's an interesting thought experiment. You also don't have to tell the truth. I mean, you could be as psychotic as you want and see what it comes out with. But I'm trying to do an accurate playthrough to see what it says.
So is it Karen by Blast Theory? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I was curious if it was localized or available outside of the UK. So apparently it is. It didn't get great reviews, but it only got 91 reviews. So I don't know if somebody got. I'll do a little research on my own, but
I think it's a little confronting. I can see how some people might score it bad. And also someone said something about like one of the versions, like the Android version or whatever, not working very well, but that may have been its initial release. It's not a new game. It's been around for a while. I just found it. but it seems to work fine on Android. I play it on Android. I've not run into any issues. So, and she sends you text messages throughout the day when it's time for you to like play the next segment. Each segment takes like about 5 minutes to do. So it's fairly convenient to work into like a toilet break or something.
Right. Okay. I found it. I downloaded it. We'll report back. So
Excellent.
We'll see.
Let me know.
Yeah. Well,
In
good.
the meantime, what have you been playing?
Well, I so on PlayStation, I bought a PlayStation 5 earlier this year and really didn't even hook it up for months. And then I finally hooked it up in November, which means that I'm transitioning away from the PS4. That was an emotional day. I had to go ahead and put that away. Yeah. So all the games I had on there and everything else, I haven't yet transferred over, but I've made the transition. One of the games that was released on PlayStation Plus, or the equivalent of Game Pass, was Disco Elysium, the director's cut. What's funny is I downloaded it. There was nothing else to play. Honestly, I had been playing Spider-Man 2, and it is a good game. It is not a great game. It is a good game. It is much more buggy. The more I've played it, it's buggy. There are some quibbles I have with the UI that I don't like. Like I don't like when I upgrade one of my suits, it automatically gets out of the menu, and that's the suit you're wearing. Like, I just wanted to upgrade this. I didn't want to switch it and then have to go back to the one it's a small quibble, but it is a frustrating thing. Right. You know, you pick up a new, piece of armor and I go to click on it just to view it, and then it's automatically equipped. I didn't want that. I just wanted to look at it. So
I didn't want that strap.
I didn't want that. And so anyway, it's buggy. The combat is frustrating sometimes because you'll be outnumbered, which you always are, but your timing and some of the other things that are necessary if you've got a game that's remotely buggy, it just makes combat frustrating. And so I've died a lot more than I did in the first game, much earlier in the game. They give you other tools that you have to use or you won't survive. And so that, I guess I just kind of hit a wall difficulty wise, and it's not overly complicated or difficult. It's just, it's a change to the combat that it's not as interesting to me. And so I didn't necessarily, it didn't hook me. And because it's so repetitive, I was like, I'll move on to something else that's a little bit more, my speed or stimulating or something that, I'll come back to it. It's fun. It's kind of mindless. I like to swing around the city. My 5-year-old daughter loves to swing around the city. And so she wants to play the Spider-Man game every now and then. So that's probably what it's been relegated to. I have no desire to finish it. Oh, no. But Disco Elysium came out. And the interesting thing about that game is you really have to be plugged in and like desire to play a game like this. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of voice acting too, and the voice acting is great. But the first time I played this about 3 years ago, when you got tired of me even mentioning it, because
literally when you said it again, I was like, not again.
You have a visceral response. I did not get very far. Like I don't even think I got to the third day in the game, and that's as far as I thought the game ends about that point. This time I've gotten so much farther. Like I'm in the 4th or 5th day. I've progressed the story to a point where it's actually really interesting. And what's happening? It's such a not an experiment's the wrong word. It is it's an existential, philosophical journey into the mind of sort of a madman cop who, depending on how you play him, has either lost his mind or is trying to find it and be a better person. Because just as a quick rundown, the character you play as, you wake up from a hangover and you have amnesia, like you can't remember anything. You don't know what kind of cop you were. You don't know anything about it. And if you build
I bet.
Yeah, well, if you build your character wrong, you can die trying to remove your your necktie from the ceiling fan. You can die just from that. And so, it's just it's a good game that I guess I underestimated it to a point because got stuck because I did a poor job creating my character. So this time I picked a stock character. They have 3 stock characters. I picked a stock character that kind of fit the way that I generally play these games, more of a thinker, analyzer, things like that. But the wildest part of this game is it wants you to fail. It wants you to fail some of the checks because you advance the story that way as well, where by failing, it opens up some of the choices that you would have never gotten otherwise. And it's so different from other games that you play where you really want to min-max your character to where you win, like you get these checks. And this game is not that way at all. The armor, or so to speak, or your equipment that you put on is just clothes that you find laying around, and the way they're described, you're wearing bum's clothes a lot of times.
Nice.
And each one of those clothes does affect your statistics, your character stats, but it's usually a give and take. You'll get this, but you lose this. And it opens up dialogue options with the characters that you meet. It's very philosophical. And so, it's a fascinating game. And the deeper you get into the story, the more interesting it is. So it's definitely it's sort of a point and click adventure game in that respect, because there's not any combat per se. You do combat things, but it's mostly figuring out puzzles, dialogue options, taking your character the way he's built and playing it that way, but also kind of venturing outside the box and taking the road less traveled a lot. So it's been a completely different experience this time. I've really enjoyed it. And because of my ADHD, I am actually just ADD. So I'm not hyperactive, but I got completely focused, and now I can't get this game off my mind until I finish it. Yeah, so I'm going to have to finish it. So next year, whenever we meet again, and I've got this game finished, I can recap, and then we can put it to bed. Bury the hatchet. Don't ever have to talk about it again.
Pick it up again in 2025. Like, remember that game, Disco Elysium?
Hey, if it's slow, then you never. If it's slow, I'm picking up Baldur's Gate 3 again, not this. So.
Excellent. All right, cool. Well, speaking of a slow news day, we're the opposite of that. So I know that you've been bookmarking news stories for the last few days or so. I've got some. I've tried to make a sandwich, but I've not achieved it. So I have a mix of positive and negative stories. The first one, which I suppose could be positive or negative depending on who you are and how you look at it, is that Xbox has launched a MasterCard. I think that is batshit crazy, but I can see how some people who are huge fans of the brand and just want to shout about it, or perhaps work for the company or whatever, may want to take advantage of the MasterCard. Now, I learned a long time ago not to get myself into credit card debt, so I don't maintain a rolling balance. But I know that a lot of people live their lives like that. So the idea that Xbox is getting involved in banking, I don't know, sort of freaks me out. A lot of stores have cards. I'm pretty sure that every store has a credit card in America, not so much over here in the UK because it's less common. But it is weird that a video game tycoon is now getting into the fray. So that's a story that I didn't want to let slip by, because they want all of the money all of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And why not print your own money with a credit card, If you can't get it any other way. That's not ominous at all. Well, that dovetails really nicely with the story that I shared with you a week or so ago about the Rockstar and the CEO of Take-Two going out on a limb and saying, with the release of Grand Theft Auto 6, that games should be theoretically priced per hour of gameplay. And which is obviously not it. Well, I say obviously, I don't know how obvious it is anymore, but that's not the route they're taking at this time. But that's the direction I think a lot of these CEOs look at gaming, is that we're providing this experience. And Grand Theft Auto 5, just for those that are tracking or didn't play it, if you did play it, then you realize that game has been popular with millions of users for a decade. So people have been playing that game for a very long time. They're still playing it as far as I know. The multiplayer portion of that game is what carried it that long. And all the
True.
DLC and all the real money that people could spend in game for fake money to do things in the game. And it's fascinating. It's like The Sims on steroids and meth. Like you can do whatever you want, buy nuclear bombs. You can do like whatever. I'm sure it's a lot of fun. It's just not been my cup of tea per se. And I like the game and the campaign portion of it. But I've just never really been a big online multiplayer player. It's just not the type of gaming I do. Not a knock on anybody that does, just not for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that I think some of these CEOs are trying to parlay that sort of approach to gaming to how can I maximize the amount of money I can get from these people who play that much is gross. And I hate the direction it's going, because it's right up there with trying to eliminate physical media and have their kind of fingers in all the pies in terms of always online connectivity and being able to patch things and sell games that aren't even complete. It's all in the same bucket to me.
Well, then you should probably be delighted to see the news story that dropped just 7 hours ago that Naughty Dog is not going to release an online multiplayer version of The Last of Us. They've decided as a business they are not taking the live service model direction, and they're going to focus on single player experiences going forward. And I think that's good for them as a company. Like, it totally makes sense. Now, some companies make awesome multiplayer experiences. I think Blizzard is one of them that consistently delivers decent or excellent multiplayer experiences, sort of ranging from Diablo 4 at the dead bottom or Diablo Immortal, perhaps even worse than that, up to World of Warcraft, which is one of the most popular video games of all time. So I think that's probably pretty good. And also the other sort of in tangent news story that Sony's going to do less live services full stop. They announced this sort of via Forbes. They're going to cut their PlayStation Live service calendar in half. They had sort of told us in last year that 60% of their budget was going to be for live service games, and now they've decided to review it, and they are going to have less than the 6 titles they originally had planned. There was supposed to be 12 by 2025, and they're not gonna financial year 2025, which is 2026 calendar year, because they use that weird financial year. But I think that it's good that they realize that things like Destiny 2 or whatever just are not keeping players as entertained as they would in the past, because live service models are still competing for the same number of physical hours per day from gamers. And when you offer a superior single player experience like Baldur's Gate did, then you just aren't playing the live service games. There is, to my knowledge, at least as an adult who doesn't suffer from any gaming related OCD, although I have OCD, it isn't targeted that direction. There is nothing about the live service model, the daily check-ins, the weekly blah blahs, the whatever, that would make me put down a compelling single player experience in favor of checking in on my multiplayer experience. Aside from needing to meet up with people to do things, there was a while that I was playing Warzone, and we would play at a specific time, and it would be to play with people. Nothing about their model or checking in or doing whatever ever mattered enough to me that if a better game didn't come by with a single player experience, I would drop it in a heartbeat. So I think it's a good move from Sony and from Naughty Dog. I think it makes sense to move away from the live service model, and I think these are all good news stories.
I agree. I don't know that we got to the answer the right way, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know that PlayStation had a moral compass that led them to this point, or probably if it was, hey, finances, this is going to be a bad investment right now. Let's shelve it maybe for the future. Either way, I agree. It is in the best interest of consumers to do it this way, not to continue to gatekeep content behind a paywall when that is not how this process has worked in the past. where you would actually purchase a game that was completed upon purchase, and you get all the content. And again, we've beaten that dead horse a number of times. I think we both are in agreement that DLC is fine. What they just released for God of War, they released a DLC that's effectively free, if I'm not mistaken. If you bought the game, I believe you get the DLC for free, and it sort of wraps up a lot of loose ends and things, so they can move on to a different pantheon of gods for him to kill. But basically, go back and look at his history through Greece and all of the gods and all of the events that have happened over the previous 3 games. And to me, that's fantastic. That's exactly how it should be done. And it's done so well in a single player format that millions of people are going and playing, returning to the game because there is a lot of stuff you can do that is New Game Plus stuff that, like, once you finish the game, you don't start over. You can continue in the game as it is and go revisit all the worlds that you didn't get those things, get the items or finish your collectathon, whatever it is that you didn't shore up, you can continue and do all that stuff. So I think that stuff's fantastic. I've wanted to go back and revisit the game, just hadn't had time. But and
now you've got the perfect excuse.
Well, it is. It's a perfect excuse to go back. And I've seen some YouTube videos on it, on some of the content, but I didn't want to spoil it for myself. So I am actually looking forward to going back and revisiting that game, especially in downtime or when there aren't any new releases I'm really interested in playing. But that's good news, nonetheless. It's good news.
Love it.
I started to play, and I don't have another news story I do. The company, and let me find the name. I apologize, I had it up. The name of the company is it's the company that was started, ByteDance.
Right.
Publisher Newverse is the publisher for Marvel Snap. And I played Marvel Snap for a good 6 or 8 months. Really enjoyed the game at first, and still sort of enjoy it. But here's the problem with the way their release schedule. Every single month, they would start over with a new meta. Right. And when you get a new meta, that means that you've got to buy the new Game Pass. So every month you had to buy a Game Pass. And with that Game Pass, you didn't have to. But if you didn't have the new Game Pass, your progression is so slow that you're not going to get the new cards in time before the next one comes out. If you have a job or a family or a significant other, or you want to eat, or any of these things that are necessary, for you to progress in life, actual life, it makes it difficult for you to get through that unless you bought the Game Pass. And the Game Pass is about $14 or something like that. And they give you enough perks that it seems worth it. But you're almost buying a new game every month that just to compete. And there's no guarantee that you're going to even get to the level. In fact, they've made it to the point where it's like, if you're not playing all the time and really, really good and already have most of the cards in the meta, there's no way for you to really compete at the highest level. You're going to be kind of stuck there in the middle. Same thing sort of happened in Hearthstone as well. The difference is if I wanted to concentrate on a class, I could destroy all the cards from any other class that I didn't necessarily want, and I'd get enough dust that I could create the meta that I needed for that class. At least for a little while, it would work, and I could earn enough to potentially get more cards and that I could create more dust, so on and so forth. You don't really have that option in Marvel Snap. So anyway, in this particular story, Newverse was reportedly laying off mass, which is this is the time period where in the gaming industry, a lot of people are being laid off. Unfortunately, slow time, they'll lay them off, then rehire them in the spring or rehire other individuals so they don't have to pay health insurance and a number of the other issues that has plagued the industry to begin with. But it wasn't necessarily a good sign. But it's also not necessarily an omen of doom for that company. Marvel Snap's still functioning. It's still going. It's free to play, although it is not free. I will tell you that much. If you play it for any length of time, I challenge a person not to spend any money and actually enjoy the game. So I have shelved it for now. I don't anticipate revisiting it. It was fun while it lasted. But much like Hearthstone, those two are sort of shelved for me.
Right.
Too much in terms of keeping up with the
The
meta.
status
It's just
quo,
too
what's going
expensive.
on? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Well, I guess the last news story that I have, and I think it's something that everybody has been talking about for a long time, and we just have definitive proof, is that PlayStation is going to delete Discovery shows that people have purchased on their PlayStation devices because you don't actually own any digital stuff that you buy, and we all sort of knew it. But it's just proof. So if you would download Mythbusters or The Deadliest Catch or anything else on Discovery, and you had actually purchased those items, sorry.
We
You're not
warned
getting
you.
a refund. You are not getting any part of your money back as far as that they've been reported, and you will just not access those things. So if you want them, you need to go buy them in physical media again, some other way. And that's the thing. If you want something in perpetuity, don't buy it digitally. I think it's been made very, very clear. Now, if you're someone like me and you only play things once and you don't care, then that's fine. But if you're a collector like yourself or Daniel or, any of the other people that run Temple of Geek and have participated with us over the years, then it probably is the death knell we all saw coming.
If you want to revisit it ever, like just if you want control over your ability to access that
Yeah.
In perpetuity, that's the only way to guarantee it.
Exactly. And that means don't buy digital only consoles. Like if that is what you value is the ability to replay things and go back and revisit them, then digital is just not the method for you. Publishers have made it very clear that you don't own anything that is distributed digitally. So
No, and we've said it for years, and to your credit, you have generally been on that side of, because you don't revisit these games often, that to you that serves its purpose. And I absolutely see both sides of it. As long as there is a physical version available, where I see it becoming nefarious is when you force it to be digitally exclusively
yeah,
digital platform. Then you never own anything. The companies own all of the information they own. That's their property, and they can shut off your access to it at any point. And then, like they're doing right now, potentially even delete your access to it at some point when they decide to shut. It's not just shutting the servers down.
Yeah.
I bought this game. It's a single player, but I no longer can access it at all. I think just superficially from the standpoint of something I purchased that should be mine. I should be able to access it. That I think that's bad for business on the consumer end. Obviously, it's only a net positive for the
It means that they can, stop hosting, stop manufacturing things like after a while. I would say, however, that even if you have a physical game with a physical disc, if it has a live service component in order to run, you also don't own it. As evidenced by the fact that, City of Heroes and City of Villains doesn't exist anymore, and the Matrix MMO doesn't exist anymore. I mean, fans have resurrected it, but I mean, the official version with official releases, just the servers are down, and with any live service game, even if I had a physical disc of City of Heroes in my house, it is a paperweight. So I think 2023 has really made it clear that if you want replayability, then live service games and digital downloads just are not where you want to invest your money. And if you don't care about that, just accept that you're paying more for less product, because all the digital things that I buy are the same price as the physical version that you buy, and yet there's an expiration date on a lot of the stuff that I purchase.
Let's just assume there's an expiration date on all of it. If it's digital, there's an expiration date on it, Yeah. No, I think that summed it up very well. I mean, that could be the tagline for this,
Perfect. Well, if we weren't going to jump into the awards, which it's been a lean year, so it won't take as long as it usually does for us to get through our awards.
That's true. But that is as decent a segue as it can get to this our award show. Now, generally speaking, whenever we do awards, we don't we don't always have your game of the year or your game awards categories. You know, we sort of have made our own, or we don't often even have the same categories because I know for me this year, I've got 2 or 3 categories that I don't think that you'll have necessarily. But I think I have 4 awards really, and then one more sort of category that I wanted to talk about, which is games I wish I played this year that I didn't get to. It'll be for next year though. So why don't we start, like, go back and forth and leave our game of the year for the last, if that sounds good to you.
Sounds fine. Although I imagine we might have the same one.
We may. We very well might. So in no particular order, I've got my game of the year, my most disappointing. I have best game within a game.
Okay, love
and
it.
And then most surprising.
All right, love it. I have best overall, most amazing campaign, highest stakes, unique art design, and immersive.
I like it. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So we'll start with the immersive one. This is a game that I just spent quite a few hours just puttering around in, having a good time doing what I wanted to do. I really did think that I was some sort of Norse warlord for a while, and that was Valheim. It's not a new game. I played it this year because it came out onto Xbox Game Pass this year, but it's just vibes. It's sort of low def, but if you like the survive, build a society sort of thing, you know, there was quests. They were fairly interesting. There were things to collect and limited bag space and all that sort of stuff. And I ended up with a bunch of broken equipment and being chased around by a very high level thing, naked and in the rain. Those are vibes. Like that's what you want. So for best immersive experience, I'm choosing Valheim.
Very good. Game I hadn't heard of, but it sounds interesting enough that I might put it on my radar now. I'm going to go with best game within a game.
Okay, love it.
Best game within a game. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is my best game within a game. So I got this game. My wife bought it for me when I was, I think I had a procedure done. And so I was sort of down for a few days. And my wife bought this for me. And I played it. And it was a game that was sort of on my radar, but Breath of the Wild was it was sort of a departure from what Zelda had been in the past, and I think it was welcomed in a lot of ways. Right. For me, there was a tediousy to what some of the management, resource management, like your weapons broke so easily, not being able to climb for very long, especially early in game, made access to certain areas difficult. But the game within a game in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you could probably not touch the main story, the campaign of this game for 30 hours, maybe 100 hours. And all you did was use the building component, the Lincoln Log Lego building component, where you piece together all these things. You can make a boat, you can make a helicopter, you can make an airboat. You can there's just so many things you can do, and then just zoom around the islands above.
Is that the game that has the sound effect that's like a little whistle like thing? Oh my gosh, my partner has been playing that. Well, he was playing that like crazy, and so like till 2 a.m, like stop making the whistle.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do about it short of turning off the sound. But yeah, there's so much to do, and that part of it's also sort of frustrating. But that's neither here nor there. Really, there was some fun stuff to that component, but it got old to me after a while, and I didn't appreciate or enjoy the story enough. I know a lot of people were. To me, the 7 out of 10 score is not indicative of what's in the game per se, as much as there may be too much to do. Like there's no direction in a significant portion of the game. Like you can go attack any of this stuff in any order you want to, or you can just stay here and build for the next 20 hours. And that's all you do. And that'd be that. It's like there's nothing pointing you to go to this next spot necessarily. You sort of just stumble upon it. And I'm sure it gets a little bit more focused as you get into the game. I mean, it's a huge game with basically 3 worlds. You have the sky portion, you have the ground level, and then you have underground. And so all of these are like their own fleshed out areas that have their own pros, cons, weaknesses, strengths, and stuff. And so it's a long, if you needed something to fill the time, this is one for you. But it does have this building component that was a lot of fun within the game. And if that's all you really ever did, I think you would have gotten probably your money's worth just from all the different things that you could build. So
I love it. That's great.
Game within a game.
Game within a game. Well, my next award is like unique art design. So, I mean, it isn't the only game that I can think of that sort of looks like this, but Atomic Heart for me was such an interesting fusion of like Soviet brutalism and 1950s like post-war optimism in terms of art design that I just found it really spectacular to look at. I didn't play a lot of it. It was actually really, really slow to get going. I think the intro like cutscene environment part is like 30 odd minutes long. There's a part where you're in a vehicle being flown around that I'm certain is like 7 minutes. And but they love their game design. They want to show it off, and it really is quite spectacular. So if you want a pretty looking game with semi-functional mechanics otherwise, and a fairly interesting story, then I would recommend Atomic Heart. It is
a strong B.
Yeah, strong B.
A strong B. Okay. For me, the next game, and I'm going to caveat this one as well. Most surprising, but my caveat is this is a game that I think, based on what I'm going to tell you and the premise, is a must play. If that's something you're interested in, I think this is a must play that you absolutely should give it a try. Right. And that's Hogwarts Legacy. I anticipated it was going to be enjoyable. I enjoy and appreciate, and I've read the book. I love the books, the Harry Potter books, and that world is interesting to me. Enough so that I've seen all of the prequel movies as well, just out of sheer fandom. Not because they were good per se. I still talk about how Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I've got like a phobia of just the Chinese dragon that's in that. It just terrifies me. But like if that was a real thing, get at it. No, it's a nope. But anyway, that particular game is the world is immersive. It is a well done, well designed game that has an interface. The UI in that game is very user friendly. If you are a fan of Harry Potter, it is absolutely a must play. Just because it fleshes out some of the history. The castle, Hogwarts Castle, is so well designed and realized that you feel immersed in that world. And so from the magic that you can learn, you can pretty much run the gamut of good and bad. You sort of have choices as to be good or bad. You get to learn a lot more of the background of the different houses, and sort of the origin of those houses and things like that. Artifacts that part of the history, a lot of the Fantastic Beasts and plants that are in that, like everything can kill you. So, it's like the most dangerous school in the history of the world, of any world. Everything in it, including most of your classes, whether you mess up on a potion or it can blow up in your face. All the animals you're raising, for the most part, could kill you one way or another. The plants are poisonous or will eat you or or whatever. And so there's just a lot. There's a lot to the game, a lot of depth. and it's not one of those games that just feels like it's filling the time and giving you a lot of busy stuff to do. The side quests are interesting, though the world is fairly large. You can tell that there's areas that are set up for expansions that they just haven't designed yet. And I think that they've recently come out with one of those. I just haven't had a chance to play it, but I was thoroughly surprised by how good this particular game was. I enjoyed it. I finished it, and I actually have considered going back. And if they continue to support it, I absolutely will. So
amazing.
yeah.
And if you want to play Hogwarts Legacy, but you don't want to support the author and ensure that she gets no royalties, you could buy a used copy.
That's true. And I think it maybe even on Game Pass. I don't know if it is now, but
I haven't seen it yet. Okay, let's see here. So my next award is for the highest stakes. And it was a game that I played that at points actually made me feel legitimately stressed out, like where time really is running out and you just feel panic. And that was Citizen Sleeper. So it is a sort of text-based visual game. It's not like action, really. It's like a comic book, pretty much, a choose your own adventure, as it were. And you're in the space station and lots of people are racist against you for whatever reason. And you're trying to complete these missions and build relationships with people and help people and, establish yourself and look after your own basic needs, sort of all at the same time while you're being hunted. It's very cool. I actually did feel stressed out, like the time was real and it was really ticking down. I did not complete it. I played it for a video game review that I attended, but I got 6 or 7 hours into it, and it was pretty interesting. I did 2 playthroughs because the first one I totally screwed up and I didn't know what I was doing. The second one was slightly more successful, although not that much so. It's interesting. It's like a dice assignment game, like within it, in order to achieve it. Very unusual. I recommend you pick it up. It is not a new game per se, but it was new to me. I played it this year for the first time ever, and it is on my list of the best games.
Absolutely. Citizen Sleeper?
Yeah, Citizen Sleeper.
Okay. I put it down. That and Atomic Heart, I'm going to go take a look at.
Excellent.
So my next category, I think I'm going to go with really my only negative category, and that is most disappointing.
Right.
My most disappointing game of this year is Diablo 4. My reasoning, Diablo 4 is a beautiful game. I thought that the premise of it is fine. I really have never played it because the story was riveting. Never. That's not the reason I played Diablo. You like dungeon crawlers. You like to, it's not. It's definitely a looter. A dungeon game where and a dungeon crawling looting game where the action is the point. It's like you build your character and the action is the point. What I found in the game is that there are certain classes that are, I believe, exponentially more difficult to play based on your build. And so it's not necessarily a game where I feel like it's broken and unbalanced in that respect.
Yeah.
So you would have to min-max a character to be where you need to be. And some of the monotony, some of the mechanics is not necessarily the right word, but the direction that the game forces you in to advance in terms of loot, like getting the best loot or whatever. It's so repetitive and monotonous. And I hadn't even gotten to the point where I finished the game and now I've just got to go do the mythics or, the high level dungeons and things like that to continue to upgrade my gear. I didn't even get to that point. I got to the point where there were some bosses I literally couldn't beat because of the build that I had. And poison damage is so overpowered, and especially from a boss. And if you didn't build your character to be resistant to that to the point that it actually matters. Because what's 3% resistance to what does that matter? It's like the math that I need to be able to, the degree I needed, I didn't get. So to really understand the mechanics. And so I put it down. It wasn't made for me. Diablo 3, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed Diablo 3. I had a demon hunter that was as much fun to play as anything I've ever played in that series. I built a druid this time because they didn't really have the character that I wanted to build. And I liked the options that I had. They just weren't useful to solo. Yeah. And I'm not somebody who needs I don't want to have to find other people to play Diablo so I can freaking play it. Yeah. I wanted to be able to play it.
I think the druids become tanks later on, though. I think maybe it's just early game.
It was early game, and if you didn't build it for damage purposes, like I was a bear at first, and the bear is great on one individual. Like if I'm just doing damage on one enemy is fine.
Single target.
But being able to do AoE stuff if they're not directly in my swipe, I just took a lot of damage, and so it wasn't as much fun to me. I know a lot of people are still having fun with it. There were some other things that they did later that the game designers did that made me feel that they were being a little disingenuous with what's in the best interest of the gamer and what's in the best interest of you having to stay plugged in all the time and always playing the game, always upgrading things. And to me, I've got a job and that I actually like. And I don't need another job that I don't like. You know?
That's so funny. I think your perspective that the build influences how much you enjoy the game is really accurate because Diablo 4 is on my list for the best campaign. So I made a bone boy right out of the start. I had no problems. I didn't realize that I was making the best possible character that you could make, but that's what appealed to me. And me and the bone boys absolutely smash murdered everything. No question. Like, I think I only died twice the entire campaign up to level 50, like no issue, no problems. And so for me, I was able to focus on the campaign and the story and the cutscenes, and I really empathized with Lilith. I was actually on her side. I was like, "Yeah, you've been done wrong. Well, let's go, sister." You know, I wanted to be on her team. And I thought when they did the season, that the tiny amount of extra content that you got there from a story perspective was interesting and compelling. But that's it. The after 50 grind, the extra stuff in the season, the malignant hearts in general, all that stuff was crap. It was really boring. And that's when I put it down. But it does have a place, at least for me, for a really dope campaign and a really hot demon lady. So
I don't argue with any of that stuff. I think that the difficulty spike, and I think ultimately that's what got me, was I would be doing so well against the mobs in the world and everything up to the boss. And then the difficulty spike in the boss and everything else that I had seen up to that point was so severe. It was so drastically increased that I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like I know how to play this game. But this spike it didn't jihad with everything else that I had just experienced.
I made a rogue and I felt that whenever I tried to like clear the little zones, the little fortresses, I just got my butt whooped every time. So the build really, really matters. So what's your next one?
Well, I think I've got one more and then the game of the year, if that works for you. So,
well, I've got no more and then my game of the year.
Okay, well, then let's just do game of the year and then I'll list my last little category because it's not a game I played. So,
okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so for me, my best overall game of the year, which literally won pretty much every game of the year award that there was to win, is of course Baldur's Gate 3. It's dope. I completed the entire playthrough. I started the second playthrough, and then my partner took the controller and he never gave it back again. So I played it on PS5. It functions great. As someone who is a dungeon master who plays D&D every single week and has for years, like, it's absolutely killer. In fact, it's made me better at playing proper tabletop because I understand some of the mechanics and how they could function a little bit better than maybe I did just thinking about it in my head. Yeah. So, absolutely killer. That's my game of the year.
I agree. I put as a consolation, because I have never had a game of the year, or we've never done an award show where I didn't have a caveat where it's like, I need to also mention this game.
Yeah, this is what you do.
I do. Absolutely. 100 every time. Jedi, Star Wars Jedi Survivor
Right.
is my consolation prize winner in that it was a great game. It built on what was done with Outcast and just improved upon that in every way. It is definitely a must. To me, it's a must play game if you are a fan of those things. If you even sort of like the Dark Souls idea in a Star Wars universe. I'm not a big fan of Dark Souls. I've played it. I own Elden Ring, and I've played it. It just is not my cup of tea either. But it's Star Wars. It's not quite as difficult as some of those games, but the same idea is it's fair. Most of the time, it's fair. And you just have to figure out the boss mechanics of each individual you're fighting. Then it's up to you and your timing to be right, But it was a great game, and I finished it. But my game of the year also is Baldur's Gate 3. It is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. I will absolutely go back and revisit it, build different characters, go in different directions, different parties. I pretty much stuck with the same party the whole time. Once I got to a certain point and I had these characters, the only time it changed is when I made a choice that pitted my party against Shadowheart, and I had to kill her. And I killed her by I teep kicked her off of the stage in where she went into a cavern and she was gone. So there was no way to even get her body. She was gone.
Oh well.
And yeah, it'd be like that. And so
it'd be like that.
So Jaheira, I had to pick up and add to my party. I'm very happy with the way everything went up until my love interest was Karlach. And so I saved her by making her a mind flayer. Yeah, I know. But this is before they did anything. Well, we
don't feel bad. I was like, oh, a guardian, great. I'll make him look like my boyfriend. I'll romance my guardian. That's so nice. No one has had bigger regrets than me.
Hey, so in a way, you did the same thing, just didn't know it. And so, the spoiler alert. So, but now that they've changed, they've added patches that make the epilogues better. I think there's even a way that you can save Karlach. If you make the right choices throughout the story, there's a way that you can save her now where I didn't have to do that. So I wish I could go back because I actually haven't finished the game. I'm at the very last fight.
Right.
And because of the way that my party is created, and I'm having a harder time finishing.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Well, it's because I play the game I want to, and I don't know what the best characteristics. I'm learning.
To be fair, I already knew what the best is going into Baldur's Gate. I made it day one right out the gate.
Right. Well, I started with a ranger, and that just didn't work for me. It was really weak.
It's not that.
No, it wasn't that. Then I went with a paladin, and that made it much easier. But then I broke my oath 4 times on accident because I was trying to do what's right in the situation, But the problem with the paladin is it doesn't matter. You have to stick to the task.
That's right.
This is your oath, whether it's the right thing in this situation or not.
That's life.
Well, that's a paladin for sure, And so, anyway, it's absolutely it's one of the best games I've ever played. Definitely a must play for anybody that likes role playing. If you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, absolutely need to play it. So, the game I wish I played though is Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is a game that came out this year that's akin to the throwback RPGs like Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger. So it's a throwback sort of 2.5D role playing game, and from what I've heard, the story is really solid. It's a throwback to that genre from the 90s with I think some improvements, quality of life improvements that made those games a little bit tedious and slow. This is sort of geared towards a contemporary crowd that does enjoy those games, but maybe doesn't have necessarily. I imagine it's still a long game and an involved game, but a good story and improvements where it's necessary. So definitely report back again with Sea of Stars when I've had a chance to play it. But it is a game I wish I'd gotten to this year. So
right. Okay. Sounds comprehensive. I think we've nailed it.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're going to need a second part to talk about what we're excited for next year, but I think we've nailed this one.
That's right. So we'll close this one and then be sure to check in for part 2. So that wraps up this episode of Retro Rebel. I want to thank Amanda for this week's discussion. All of the notes from this week's episode will be posted on our site, templeofgeek.com. If you'd like to add to the discussion or reach out with questions, sound off in the comments or message us on Facebook or Instagram at Retro Rebel Podcast. And please head over to wherever you get your podcasts and rate us because that really helps our show. Until the next time.
See you later.